You are now tuned into Flipping the Birds, a Philly Sports Network podcast.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome one, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds.
He's into the end zone. Touchdown, Eagles.
What's going on, Eagles fans? Welcome on, welcome all to another episode of Flipping the Birds. I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Morgan Burkett. We are on episode 170, and it's the big day. Eagles schedule release, top to bottom. No more whining, no more crying. If you're Kyle Shanahan, hide behind your wife. Whatever floats your boat.
That's fair.
I mean, that's what it sounds like.
That's
right?
fair.
I mean,
That's what he said.
that's
Not our
exactly
words,
what he
his
said,
words.
right? The guys are whining over there in San Francisco, which makes a lot of sense from what's the Cali style. But hey, we're live technically. I mean, we're back in action. This feels good. Football season is right there. We're on the cusp of something great.
Yeah, I feel like you're forgetting how long July is, man. But hey,
Don't talk about July.
Yeah. Fair enough. Shoot, man, pretty good schedule. See, I was thinking about going to Seattle. I got a buddy in Vancouver, and the Seattle game. I was hoping it wouldn't be December 17th. That's gonna be rough.
So, is it possible for you to zoom up a little bit on the actual graphic? Now that the script is out, and shout out to everybody that's joining us live. I know you guys are probably watching the Sixers game while also listening to our nonsense at this moment. So we thank you guys. We're happy that you guys are not Raptors fans.
I mean, you did say Raptors in 7, and you kicked me off the stream. It was one of the craziest things that's ever happened. Yeah, I'm still kind of getting over that. I'm a little shell shocked, but that's all right. We can continue.
Yeah, I mean, life goes on, right? Life happens at the end of the day. One day you wake up, you're the number one pick in the league, and the next day you haven't played a damn game in like 4 years.
I'm okay to not talk about number one picks for about as long as I can possibly do it. So, anyway, schedule day, all right?
Yes.
Let's do it.
Dude, I cannot wait for San Francisco. I have that personally circled, but let's.
So yeah, let's not jump to week 13 just yet. Let's get to week 1 first, Eric.
I'm ready.
Eric has a vendetta against San Francisco, and I'm all for it.
I do have a vendetta, so yeah. Yep.
So week 1, we open on the road, right? Hoping for Chiefs and Eagles, but apparently that's not going to be a thing. Chiefs and Lions open up the season on Thursday Night Football. Could be an interesting matchup. But we open up on the road against the Patriots. This is the Juju Smith-Schuster versus A.J. Brown game. It feels like this is Alabama versus Alabama.
Not just that, but the Patriots are honoring Tom Brady
with a picture of Brandon Graham strip sacking him, right? I think that's what the rumor is.
That's what I'm thinking. How ironic that one Super Bowl loss that haunts Tom Brady, the Eagles, and now he's getting his farewell. It seems very Belichick of like, let's get back at Tom Brady for leaving to go to Tampa kind of thing.
I think what should happen here is when they're honoring Tom Brady, we should have Nick Foles there, and it should be like a Western, like
as an honorary captain.
Yeah, like it should be like a Western, like a country Western on the 50-yard line. And instead of like a dueling, it's like you have to now shake his hand. You finally have to shake his hand.
And it's the thing because Brady, like the only person that irritates him is Nick Foles. Like he really feels like he should have won that Super Bowl. And granted, if I throw for 500 yards, I'm thinking I'm winning the Super Bowl too. But Brandon Graham had other ideas. Thank God for Brandon Graham, by the way. So I mean, opening up on the road looks like a late afternoon game. How do we feel about Eagles visiting the Patriots? Matt Patricia versus Bill Belichick, Nick Sirianni, and the return of Jalen Hurts.
I'm sorry, I missed the last part of that. You said, how do we feel about that?
Yeah.
Okay.
How do we feel about opening on the road? Do we feel that, this is an automatic W?
I feel that the Eagles are heavily favored out of this, but week 1 always is going to show some rust. I mean, because of the offseason and just time away from the game. This has to be a win for Philadelphia to start out the season, correct? Because, I mean, looking ahead, you got 2 games that are on a short leash back-to-back right after week 1. So, yeah, like this, to me, an automatic win. I mean, it's the NFL, nothing's automatic, but I would say the Eagles I would heavily favor. I would put them as winning this game, like a W and on the schedule if I'm making a prediction. And I'm sure Morgan would too, Brian.
Oh, yeah, I was on mute. How you feel about it, Morgan? Blackout Morgan?
I don't think he's there.
He really took the Raptors thing so hard, huh? Okay.
They think he did. I think you well.
But yeah, so
he'll be back.
Yeah, he will. We'll get his answer in a few. As Joel Embiid with a nasty block that's apparently called as a foul or goaltending. Yeah, I mean, I think Eagles, it's always hard week 1, right? You're shaking off the rust. You're getting acclimated with your new guys on the team. You're getting acclimated to actually facing real competition as opposed to preseason competition where nobody's really trying. I think we open up, with a win. I think it's a solid win at that. Yeah, I think they start off 1-0.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It's not a knock against New England at all.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, to me, this Philadelphia team is only getting better. It's only getting stronger.
Exactly.
And I think this is, I mean, obviously every team wants to start a season on the right foot, but for Philadelphia with a new defensive coordinator and kind of a new look as far as the staff is concerned, they're going to be hard to show that this is the same Philadelphia team from last season. They haven't lost a step, or at least play the best to their ability. So yeah, this is a kind of I would say, dare I say, a must win in a game that they're favored to win.
That's interesting. That's an interesting way to declare it. What's up, Raptor Morg?
Okay, so I'm back. Sorry, I had to do something real quick. Patriots, easy win. I don't really know how this team gets significantly better or in the future. I feel bad. Honestly, I hate the Patriots for so long, but I do feel bad for Bill Belichick, obviously the greatest coach of all time, having to deal with this roster. I know he's also got GM privileges, but it should be a win, right? I don't know why they're starting off the season with this matchup. The Patriots are probably not a playoff team this year, and you're going against at least the Chiefs-Lions game has some kind of, hoopla going around it. The Lions ended on a high note last year, almost squeezing into the playoffs. And there's some upside. Patriots, I just don't know. I don't get it. Interesting take by Eric on the Vikings game. I think that this is it's the second.
Oh, we didn't get the Vikings.
Pardon?
We didn't get to the Vikings yet.
Oh, okay, sorry.
I did kind of point out to the upcoming ones, though, for sure.
Okay. So Patriots, you said, was a must win. That's interesting to me. I think this is just it's just a question of firepower. The Patriots don't have enough firepower to keep up with the Eagles. Should be an easy win. Might not be a blowout. You might see something similar to the Lions game where it's closer than people think, but this is a win.
Okay, fair game.
Now the Vikings, right?
now the Vikings. As I lose my screen, so just keep doing what you're doing. I don't know what's going on. Oh, here it is. Yeah,
the Vikings at home.
It's at home. It's a home opener, right?
Yeah.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but the big issue is that the Phillies are playing on that day as well, 4:00 at home, right?
I don't know.
Is that not the big rumor?
I said that's the first I've heard of it, but I usually just don't look that far into the schedule for baseball, unfortunately.
Okay. No knock on that. So yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson, AJ Brown, Kirk Cousins, Jalen Hurts. Questionable if it's going to be Dalvin Cook versus DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny, the two-headed monster.
Jackson,
how do you guys feel about that?
As well.
I'm not falling into the same trap I fell into last season. Last season it was I didn't hear the end of it when I said maybe the Vikings will beat the Eagles. I did pick the Vikings in that week. Right now, I'm kind of still riding that wave where the Philadelphia Eagles are almost untouchable, and in a lot of ways, the Vikings, maybe they have a chance to prove that they're better than what they were last season in our matchup head to head, but I think the Eagles take this one. I'm not going to dare say here and say the Vikings will after watching the way the Eagles matched up against the Vikings last season. I know that this season is different than last season, but until otherwise shown, I think the Eagles, are here again the favorite. That's 2 wins in a row.
I don't know if that's better, Brian. I'm trying to.
Yeah, sorry. You saw my my flickering of the schedule. I tried uploading it to StreamYard, but it wasn't cooperating.
I can give you
Well, that's fresh. I can deal with that as my dog is going off. Today's a chaotic day. Feels like.
Yeah, it seems that way. It's yeah. I mean, I kind of agree with Eric. Like, you get Kirk Cousins. It's interesting that they this for the second time have week 2 matchup against the Vikings. And I mean, we all know how Kirk Cousins performs in prime time. Obviously, it's a Thursday night game, not a Monday night game. So I think he's a little better on Thursdays than Monday. But a good first test. I think, like, you're looking at the first couple of weeks. That's really like the one you circle in terms of, figuring out how good of a team you are. Going to be a huge test for this whoever is starting at safety, right? So it's going to be a big test for the DBs. Obviously, I think that if the D line can get to Kirk Cousins, then it won't be a problem. So it'll be an interesting test for the defense. But offensively, I just don't think the Vikings have the firepower, have the personnel to contain the Eagles' offense. So again, should be a win, but a good test at week 2.
I agree. The Vikings is always an interesting matchup, right? Like, you have I don't want to say they have a lot of firepower on offense, right? But they've seemed like they're a team that just can't get it together. They're a team that's very well constructed, but there's something missing, right? And it's the Kirk Cousins effects, where you can only get as far as he wants to take you. At the end of the day, he has his moments where he's like, he's completely going off, but he also has his moments where he's doing the Homer Simpson, meaning he's kind of just ducking into the bushes. But I feel like the Eagles have had their numbers ever since we traded them Sam Bradford.
I definitely agree with what you're saying, that they're pretty much as good as Kirk Cousins, but I allows them to be in a lot of ways. I think they're a team that has a ton of potential as in terms of the firepower that you were talking about. But you're right, like, the potential doesn't translate to what it is on the field and the end result sometimes, and I think that's been pretty much the story with the Vikings, and again with Dalvin Cook, with Justin Jefferson, with and even somebody like Kirk Cousins, who some people say he's a decent enough passer. Well, he should be with those kind of weapons out there again. So it's you're kind of looking at this team here, thinking to yourself, so why can't they stack up against the elites? And
there's something missing.
To me, it's defense. At the end of the day, it's a defensive matchup, and if Philadelphia can pretty much match up and play the same sort of way that they did last season, maybe try to replicate that to an extent, that'll be nice. But again, I think that our defensive coordinator is more evolved than Jonathan Gannon. So going into this, my observation would be that this is going to be a harder game for the Vikings in the matchup against the Eagles. Like, we have DeAndre Swift. I don't think we've lost too much in Miles Sanders there. As far as the defensive line is concerned, it's younger. They'll be on rotation. You haven't lost a step at all.
Yeah.
Offensively, you're just a juggernaut across the NFL, and you're asking the Vikings to stop that. I just don't see how the Vikings match up in a prosperous way against Philadelphia.
And it's really like, I think the key thing is defense, right? I know and Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, they added Jordan Addison on to the offense, right? That's what they drafted to be their second wideout. Jordan added. That's what it was? Addison?
Yeah, I said Jackson Smith and Jigba, but it's Jordan Addison because he wants that money. He's a money guy.
But they added him to the offense.
They lost Rick Hendricks, which is massive.
And I just feel like that they've had a great roster for years, right? And they just took a big step back, and now it's kind of like, all right, cool. You guys are just always been around, kind of like what the Giants are turning into, right? The team that's just around. They could be competitive, they could do damage, but the likelihood is they're not at the end of the day. Which takes us to our next team, right? Tampa Bay Bucks, the Bradyless Bucks, the Baker Mayfield Bucks.
Yeah.
They still have, the
Maybe.
two good wide receivers in Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. They have that young stud for a running back in Rashad White. But it just feels like I hate to use the word cakewalk because at the end of the day, like they're all professionals. They're all supposed to compete, but this feels like week 3 is kind of just allowing Philly to really recover from that Super Bowl hangover per se.
Can one of you guys pull up Ron's comment actually? Because this is kind of crazy. Something that I was noticing as well.
This one?
But
Oh wait, this one?
yeah, literally 3 games total at 1 p.m.
It's unlimited prime time. I love it, dude. Which means I may not have to pay for Sunday ticket, which is astronomically.
That Giants game might be flexed as well. Like that's a game that the Giants are looking like they might want to make a run for the division, and if not, it seems like they'll still be in a position for a playoff push. So I think that game could probably get flexed as well.
Yeah, it's definitely wild. And what I can't see from here. The Bucks game, is that a 1:00 game or is that a 4:25?
That's a Monday night. So if
That's
they
a
go
Monday
Thursday
night game.
night, then they go
Yeah.
Monday night, then they go 1 p.m. and then
So
they're
it's a back-to-back.
afternoon Sunday night football.
So that's a long layoff from Thursday to Monday. I mean, that's technically a bye week.
Yep.
NFL's keeping the Eagles fresh, huh?
Yeah, to face the Bucks. And it's another thing too where like a lot of these teams because they obviously the Eagles they went from the easiest strength of schedule to the hardest, right? But
Yeah.
one of the a lot of that's based off record, right? So some of those teams like the Bucks, they're not going to be the Bucks of last year. Who knows
Exactly.
who knows where the Rams are going to be? The Jets are projected to be a better team, but a lot of these teams, like the 49ers as well, you don't really know where they're going to be at. There's a chance that the Cardinals could be even worse. Just listening to Jonathan Gannon speak at all.
I feel like we should call them the 49ers at this rate. The way they're whining so much over there.
They'd be whining a lot.
I think it's fair to say
you missed an opportunity to call them 40 whiners. Come on now, Rob.
Oh wow, that's perfect. 40 whiners.
There you go.
Wow.
Boom.
I don't know why I'm mind blown by that, but that's a perfect 40 whiners. I like it.
Perfect.
So I think it's fair to say we all agree the Eagles are 3-0 at this point after week 3.
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with the Buccaneers game that Philadelphia does get the win there. I just now realized that while I was saying earlier that the Eagles have a quick turnaround, that it's actually not, because I'm thinking in my mind like a hockey schedule. Like I'm so used to that it's like, oh, Thursday and then they play Monday. Like no, it's actually an extra week in between.
Exactly.
So right, okay, all right. Now I'm on the same page as you guys. Yeah, no, that's fantastic.
But the only thing that sucks is like they play Monday.
Perfect.
And then they have a short week heading into a 1:00 game with the Commanders
At home.
1,000%. Yeah.
Which is nice.
And that's
Commanders, how do we?
Right? That
Yeah.
is what we were saying about the 3 1:00 games. Is the Commanders and the Cardinals?
Yeah, both Commanders games. Which
How do we feel about?
I mean, again, having both the Commanders games at 1 kind of shows you what the league thinks of Washington, right? And I think they're better than what they seem.
Stop
like that defense.
Stop that.
Listen, we talked about it last year, how that defense, if they get it together, is a very scary defense. I don't know what the plan is on offense. They still have some pretty terrifying weapons at wide receiver.
Sam Howell, quarterback 1.
Exactly. But you never know. Sam Howell, like he might, a lot of these second-year quarterbacks that are starting for the first time get off to a hot start, right? And you never know. Like it's hard to game plan against them. You have no film. You'll have 3 weeks of film, but still it's who knows if he's going to be the starter week 1? Who knows what the quarterback situation is going to be in Washington? And you're in a situation where if that defense plays the way they should and their quarterback can kind of surprise you, this is kind of a sneaky trap game. I think just the Eagles last year, the way that they went about the season and had those games where they probably should have won and didn't, or it was closer than it should have been. I think they learned their lesson. You have a lot of returning players, and so hopefully they learned their lesson. But on paper, I think Washington and then the Rams the week after, which we'll talk about, are probably some trap games you have to be worried about.
And I completely get that, right? But I don't know, like And it's funny because last year when we did this, right, we were very, very skeptical because we're looking at the schedule like, yeah, like they could go 14 and whatever case may be, or 16-1 at this rate. Like, but we were skeptical of saying that, right? Not a lot of us agreed to that kind of idea.
Mhm.
But even with the toughest schedule, I mean, obviously so far, right? It just feels like, is it really that tough of a schedule? Like
Well,
you're saying, like these top teams that were top last year
we're
are just not the
we're gonna
guys this
get
year.
to it, Brian. But
All
that
right.
week 11 to week 14 stretch.
We said the same thing last year when they had that road trip against, like, it was like the Titans and then the Bears and I forgot what the Packers, I think it was as well.
Mhm.
That we were concerned about it. And it just, I don't know, man. Like,
But
I
it's
hate
crazy
betting
because
against this team right now.
in hindsight, you look at the Titans, the Bears, and the Packers, and you say that this year, and you're like, no, like not even close to like even being worried about those teams. But yeah, like later on in the season, you have a stretch of games to worry about.
Gone.
But I would say that the Commanders in Week 4 could be a trap game. It could be, and it's usually the divisional games that are the hardest matchups for whatever reason. It's also the first 1 o'clock game. We'll see how the Eagles play, earlier in the day versus the rest of the season. I don't think that will change too much, if anything, but it could. Who knows? But again, last year about the Commanders, I was pretty confident that the Eagles were going to sweep them, no question. We kind of
That
know
one game
how
though, they had
we
it.
know how that ended, and I don't, and
The
even
script was
down
in.
to those like 3 minutes when the Eagles maybe could have had the ball back, I was still confident that they probably would have put points on the board.
Mm.
But you can't. It's nothing's guaranteed. Do I think
So
that they'll lose this game? No. So I'm gonna say that they start 4-0.
okay, so I'm with Eric. I'll go 4-0 right now. How you feeling, Morg?
Yeah, I agree.
4-0. Okay. So Rams. So the rebirth of what they were a couple years ago. Matt Stafford, I think it should be fresh at this point in the season, coming back from injury.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. We've always had the Rams number, right? And this is in LA, which sucks because I mean, back-to-back road games, right? You have one in LA and then the next one's in New York. Like that's a little brutal on the team, if you ask me. So if any, in my opinion, if any of these games are going to be trap games, I feel like back-to-back on both coasts is really going to be kind of brutal on the team. I think they take the first L against LA, just because I just think like LA will come out firing on all cylinders. This will be that game where people are like, oh, okay, the Eagles finally played a team that's worthy or whatever the excuse may be, right? But I think this at this point it's just a team that's kind of like, I don't know how to say, like they stumbled a lot last year, right? And you're allowed to do that as a football team. It's all about how you recover from it. They recovered enough last year where they ended up in the Super Bowl. So I think this is one of those games where they learn from their mistakes and they keep trucking forward. So I have them at 4-1 against LA.
Yeah, I think LA's kind of scary in that they're really well coached and they have Super Bowl pedigree. Both things you mentioned. They've kind of mortgaged their future, right? So
Yeah.
it really depends how healthy they are. I mean, it's only week 5, but you lose a key piece, they really don't have the depth anymore. They don't have the young talent they used to. Obviously, Cooper Kupp's tough to deal with regardless. So I think that matchup is going to be something to watch. He lines up in the slot. That's probably Avonte Maddox still. It's a tough matchup, and it could be one of those games where they just kind of ride him to victory. But I just like I think that just kind of in the back of my head, it's like, how likely is this team goes 5-0 again, right?
Yeah.
Usually it doesn't happen, and so I think that those two games, the week 4 and the week 5, are tricky ones. But I think in LA, we were just kind of like, it was kind of a given with Peterson, right? Like Peterson did a couple things, and one of those things was he fucked up the Rams, which is awesome. We love that shit, right? So it's not a given anymore. It's a really good head coach down there in LA, and so I think that you're right, Brian. This is one of those where I think I'm not sure whether it's that divisional game in week 4 that trips them up or the Rams in week 5, but I do think they are 4-1 at this point.
Fair.
I could lean to 4-1. Absolutely, that makes a ton of sense. Starting 5-0 is incredibly hard, and I think the Eagles, starting with this game, are entering probably their hardest stretch. I would disagree that their hard stretch begins later than this middle section of the schedule. Um, yeah, like Cooper Cup is what stands out as something that it's he's obviously a superstar in the league. He's hard to shut down. Um, it just doesn't necessarily seem that the Eagles are like, no matter how much we think highly of their defense, every once in a while there is a game where we allow one player to just absolutely take over and destroy, and Cooper Cup is labeled probably to be that guy. So in a lot of ways, it's easier for me to say I feel threatened by the Rams at the earliest this season, and there is more of a potential to lose that game. So I can see that being a loss. Let's just say 4-1 instead of 5-0, because also by that point, like, we're ideally saying that everybody's going to be healthy. We also don't know how that's going to play out either. But let's just say that injuries do come in by this point, or somebody is missing from the lineup, maybe on the offensive line. The Rams can be a nightmare. If that it just takes one person to be out of place, and quite frankly, now you're going shot for shot with a team that's pretty much as dynamic as you are in offense.
Fair. So we all have them at 4-1.
Yeah.
All right. So next game is interesting. It's the Aaron Rodgers versus Jalen Hurts game. It's in New York, although it's in North Jersey.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron Rodgers to the Jets it doesn't do anything for me. I think Mecole Hardman to the Jets does more to me than Aaron Rodgers to the Jets. I don't see them beating the Eagles. I think it'll be an interesting matchup. This feels kind of like the Bears matchup last year, where it was kind of like, the Eagles could dismantle them, or they could struggle in, because they're making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't see them leaving North Jersey without a win in this case. So I have them going 5-1 at this rate.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't know. Like it clearly makes them a better team to have Aaron Rodgers. I just can't figure out how you make that offense good enough to compete. Like, I think they're just like a really good mid-tier team at this point. Defense is really good and upcoming. And obviously they're also well coached with Saleh in charge, and they're going to be disciplined, and Aaron Rodgers doesn't make too many mistakes. But again, I don't see this team. I mean, for one, I just feel like, Sauce Gardner had that amazing rookie campaign. He's either going to be as good or he's going to drop off. Like, it's hard to have a better season, right? It's just going to be tough for him. The offensive, like, that defensive line was fantastic. They never played the Eagles defensive line. And then Aaron Rodgers, it's great, but like, again, I'm not that threatened by Alan Lazard, so it's got to be Garrett Wilson.
And
And
Harmon is injured, and
like, is he really a game breaker kind of guy? Like, he's fast, he can get a touch, but like, outside of Garrett Wilson, there's no game breaker on that roster outside of Breece Hall. But and it could be one of those games where that's the key, is the Eagles defense just gets run all over. But you're hoping. Obviously, I think the first 6 weeks in general depends on how good Sean Desai is, because if he sucks, then it doesn't matter, right? As much talent as you have on this defense, but ideally he's able to shore up that run defense a little bit. And I don't know. I just don't see it. So I agree. I think they're 5-1. I think they can beat the Jets.
Okay.
A lot of how I feel about this stretch of games will very much rely on how Sean Desai handles the Rams and prepares for the Rams. I do think that the Jets make this game a little bit interesting, as you two were both saying. I think it is a competitive game, but I do have the Eagles ultimately defeat the Jets. I don't think Aaron Rodgers, at this point with the Jets in his first season, is doing anything to kind of make me feel threatened with the team that I know the Eagles have or can be. So I have, what is this now? It was to be 5-1.
5-1, yeah.
5-1. I have 5-1.
Okay. This is probably going to be one of my favorite games this year. I'm a big Tua guy. I like Tua. I like what they did in Miami. Sunday Night Football. Jalen versus Tua. Both of them backed each other up at one point, right? But this I don't know, like this just has Philly written all over it. Again, the biggest difference maker in a lot of these games is going to be, like Morgan said, is the defensive line. Not only do we have like several players returning, key players, right? Javon Hargrave, he was essential, right? But at the end of the day, he wasn't the guy defensive line. Now you have Jordan Davis, you have Jalen Carter, you have Fletcher Cox, you have Nolan Smith, you have Hassan Reddick, you have Josh Sweat, you have Brandon Graham, you have damn, why is his name escape? Milton Williams. You have, I was gonna say Michelle Williams for some reason. You have a lot of like big boys on that defensive line, and then you have Nakobe Dean. And I was watching some Georgia tape the other day, right? Just watching Nakobe Dean kind of control the big boys up front. Like he was the guy, like he was the captain of everything. And this defensive line is gonna be a real deal breaker this season, to see, if they are that formidable front still, or if they're taking a step back behind Sean Desai. But I think I had them beating Miami, right? I have them beating Miami because Tua isn't. I feel like Tua hasn't really established himself yet, and the guy can't stay healthy with these concussions. Tyreek Hill is going to be huge, but at the same time, it's like Morgan said early on, if the Eagles can get their safeties doing the right thing, a guy like Sidney Brown could be a difference maker in this game. Even like the young guys behind the cornerbacks, like if you have Greedy Williams, and I'm forgetting Keely Ringo, if you have these guys kind of stepping in a little bit, I feel like the secondary will be a difference maker. But again, Tua hasn't proven that he could play healthy for a full season, so it's just too much mustard for Jalen Hurts to lose this game, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I think that there is a lot of question marks about the Dolphins, and there's a lot of uncertainties in a game where, I mean, against an opponent like the Eagles, you need all those question marks to be certain for at least one game. So you're going in there with your full battle equipment ready to go. Because I don't think that will be the case with Miami. Yeah, I'm saying here, let's just pretty much make this an easy one. I'm going to say it says 6-1 start for the Eagles. Do I think the game will be competitive? Of course. Tyreek Hill is dynamic in the same ways that I would say that Cooper Kupp is dynamic. And when Tua is healthy, Tua and Tyreek was going off last season. Mm-hmm. And it actually looked like a fantastic matchup, as we kind of said earlier. But looking back, on the way that season finished, it seems like if one goes, it all goes, and it begins with Tua. If you can get a lot of pressure on Tua, he's not going to be a comfortable quarterback. Between the two in the NFL, Jalen Hurts is the more comfortable quarterback, and I think the rides or dies on that right there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll make it short and sweet. I don't believe in the Dolphins at all. I don't think. I don't think they're good. I think they're a gadget. Like, I understand that they're supposed to have an offensive mastermind.
They did get Jalen Ramsey as well.
I just like none of the moves that Dolphins make, like they're just not relevant. They're one of those poverty franchises that just does things to mess themselves up, right? Like the medical staff can't get it right. The ownership, like I don't understand the coaching change a couple years ago. They're on the right path. Like it just seems like they do whatever they can to trip over their own laces, and like I just don't believe it at all. You're gonna have a year of tape on them. Last year they were good because they were fat. Like there's no team since like the late 90s Rams that was actually a contender just because they were fast. Like there's nothing about this team that has any substance. They're soft. They play in a division where Buffalo looked good, and then Buffalo when the tough times got going was also soft. So they got a bunch of wins off of soft teams. Like, who did they beat last year? Like, they got destroyed by the 49ers. They lost to the Chargers. They beat the Texans. They beat the Browns. Like, they barely beat the Bears. I don't see it at all. I think this is a blowout.
Wow. Okay. So the Eagles are 6-1, or is it 7-1 now? 6-1.
That would be 6-1. That's the most confident 6-1 I think I've heard.
Legit. He called him soft.
Yeah,
you're soft.
Morgan pointed the bat at center field and said, "I'm going to knock this grand slam out to the next area code." That's what I'm going to do.
Absolutely. Now, if they lose that game, I'll look silly, but
let's see. I mean, I don't see them losing that game. I'm with you on that. Mm-hmm. Next game, we're going to Washington, right? where the railings fall, and I think the Eagles fall too. I think this is the ultimate trip game. I think they're coming off the high. They're 6-1, and I think they slip against this Washington team, and it'll make sense later when we go to the next game as to why I think this. But I think they end up 6-2 at this rate. I think they do fall to the Commanders for some reason. They haven't swept the Commanders in quite some time. I don't believe. But I think this will be one of those games where they get in their own way.
I think they're warming up at right here, and I think if they are going to lose to the Commanders, it could be the first game. It would suck to open up your your divisional schedule with a loss, but I think that's the trap game out of the two. I think right now, if you're kind of going with our trend of they beat the Jets, they beat the Dolphins, they go into Washington. Yeah, I'm ready to say that they roll over Washington.
Okay.
I'm not as confident as Morgan just was. I mean, geez, that was very confident, but I was like the most confident I've ever seen anybody be. But I'm like a notch below. So pretty like if he's a 10, I'm a 9. So I'm pretty darn confident.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as Eric, where I think that this is kind of when they start rolling. They have two, relatively tough games in a row on paper. And, I think that they just are hitting that sweet spot where they kind of, are kind of preparing for what is going to be a really tough stretch. I think they take care of business here. Like, I'm with Eric where I do think they can lose to Washington, but I think it'll be that first game. I see them kind of, taking care of the Jets, taking care of the Dolphins, and finishing off business in Washington before this kind of nightmarish stretch. It all depends on how good the Cowboys are going to be, but I'm sure we'll get to that.
Okay, so I have them at 6-2 at this rate. You guys have them at 7-1 heading into Dallas week, and here's why I have them losing to the Commanders. Because what's going to happen is the Eagles are going to fumble the game against the Commanders. Dallas week is going to come around, and the trend on national media is going to be that are the Eagles really that good? They lost to the Commanders. It's going to be, oh my God, the Eagles haven't played nobody yet. The Eagles haven't done this yet. And I think this is the game where we actually see Dak Prescott versus Jalen Hurts, and I think Jalen Hurts and company lay out the haymaker, and they actually put it all to rest, right? Who's a better quarterback in the division? Who's a better team in the division starting out? And I think they knock out the Cowboys completely, just destroyed them. I feel like that motive has been there with all the Dak Prescott talk. But in my opinion, I think they lose to the Commanders. They take that motivation to be oh shit, we messed up. We screwed ourselves over. Let's get this next game. It's perfect because it's the Cowboys. So I have them at 7-2 at this rate.
I just wonder if Pollard is really the every down back for a full season. And I think that's my question going into this because he is dynamic, and he is somebody that popped off the page or off the screen, if you will, when I watched the Cowboys last season. I do believe that the Philadelphia Eagles, again last season was an odd look because Dallas was hurt at one point. He didn't have Dak, and we didn't have Jalen one game. So he never really had an understanding of if both teams were healthy, who would be the better team. So this time around, I think that, again, divisional games are close, but I think this one right here, we have a tendency to play well and bring our A game against Dallas because it's just that rivalry game. So, I'm picking Philadelphia here. And I think it's not going to be a crushing defeat, but I think it's going to be at least a 10-point victory.
Okay, so you have them at 8. Is it 8-1? Or?
So that would be 8-1. The only loss I would have right now is to the Rams.
Okay.
Pretty fortunate bye in week 10, right? So they have to worry about this game, and then they have a week off before they worry about that 4-game stretch that ends up back with Dallas. I just again looking at this Dallas team, it's going to be going one of two ways at this point in the season. Either they're still in contention and they think they can win, and a Dallas team that thinks they can win is a dangerous team, or it's going to be going south, and you're going to be wondering what the heck happened to the Cowboys. It's the defense really that is kind of the question mark. I think the offense has kind of shown their hand, and they're going to be as good as they are. They didn't really add any pieces that are big game changers. It's going to be CeeDee Lamb and Tony Pollard, and they're going to ride that until, someone else steps up or they add someone to the team. I don't know. I don't think that Brandon Cooks is going to do all that much. It creates space for CeeDee Lamb to operate, but I think, Brandon Cooks, he always kind of has those like 2 or 3 games a year where he gets like 90% of his yards.
Yeah.
Because there's that stat where he's been an 1,000-yard receiver for a long time. Well, he's been the only option on most teams he's played for. Right now he's not. So now he's going to have to find targets when he can, and so I don't know how that's going to fit in the offense. Maybe it works well. But I think the big key here is Micah Parsons moving down to defensive end. I don't know who's going to play linebacker. They're just not as dangerous with him not at linebacker, not able to move around the formation. And the Eagles dealt with him pretty handily last year. And now you got to cover DeAndre Swift in open space.
I think his reaction was telltale at the draft as well.
Yeah. I just think that I think the Cowboys know that the Eagles are a better team, and that's really defeating in a locker room.
Fair. So you have them winning this game as well.
Absolutely.
So that's what is 8-1 for you guys, 7-2 for me.
8-1.
Yeah, it's 8-1, and then we're going into that bye week 10.
Yes, and then following the bye week, my favorite.
You know
game,
what? I take it back from earlier because I now have a better look. I actually looking at the run right here. The Eagles could have a challenging run in that 5 week that we just talked about. Yeah, but you know what? I will take back what I said earlier. This upcoming 5 does look a little bit more stubborn, a little bit more tough.
It definitely does, right? And it starts with the Super Bowl rematch, right? We all feel like the Eagles got robbed, right? We all feel like, everything that came out with the field being overwatered, ironically, against the best defensive line in the league. A holding call being called only against the offense on that last play. But Jalen Hurts has more to prove, right? Jalen Hurts has to prove once again that he's, for some weird reason, $255 million later, he has to prove that he's still a sustainable quarterback in the NFL, right? He has to prove that he can go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes. And I do think the Eagles go toe-to-toe with them. And I do think the only difference maker in this game is going to be Travis Kelce for the Chiefs. And I think the Eagles make a point. They prove a point like they belong to hang with the big dogs. Last year was not a fluke. I think they take this Monday Night Football game because of the distaste that was left in their mouth from the Super Bowl. I mean, it's clear as day. Everybody knows, like, if Jalen Hurts got the ball on that last drive, the likelihood is Philly wins the Super Bowl. The NFL did a favor to Patrick Mahomes. He pulled a LeBron James, right? He saw his guy flopping, and then he started pointing to the ref like, hey, my guy's flopping. You need to call it. He's flopping. So, yeah, I'd have them taking this game. I have them at 8-2 against the at this point in the season.
To me, this is far and away the hardest game to predict in the season because it's obviously, we're running it back with the Super Bowl opponents. However, it's like Ron said in the chat over here, it's a great week for a bye headed into this because if the team is a little bit banged up, you have a little bit of time to rest, and hopefully everybody's ready for the Chiefs to bring everything they have. Yeah, there's a lot of little variables that went into that Super Bowl loss. I think that if the Eagles played a clean game, like there was that one fumble which from Jalen Hurts is just uncharacteristic. I don't foresee Aaron Sipos being the punter. I think the undrafted free agent we got, I forget his name's slipping off my brain right now, but
Legatron.
I know Chris calls him Legatron. So, but as far as he's concerned, I think having a better punter, for as dumb as that sounds, as minuscule as that sounds, had a great effect in that loss because of field position. Field position is going to be huge. It's not at a neutral site. It's we're watching. We're going into Kansas City, so we'll see how the field conditions are and all those other things like that. But I have more faith in the defensive line and our defense in general in a matchup than in Kansas City's defense. And I have to say, there is a little bit of fear that Mahomes should put into pretty much everybody. But I think the Philadelphia Eagles are, in my heart, the better team. And I'm not trying to sound like a homer about it. I just think at the end of the day, there was a few variables that were unfortunate in that Super Bowl, like a turnover here and there, or the field conditions. Because I do believe that that definitely played a factor in our defensive line not getting the rush that they should have. So yeah, Philadelphia, could they win this game? Sure, it's going to be very close. It's going to be maybe a field goal game, just like the Super Bowl. Even I think they get their win back though, and unfortunately, it just won't matter as much as it would have for a Super Bowl ring.
It still matters, Eric. It still matters.
I know, but it'd be nice to have the championship instead.
I think a big factor here, and I had to check it, was what the matchup the Chiefs had going into this game, and they also have a bye, so it's going to be two coaches who have a lot of time to prepare for each other.
Wow, is that a coincidence, isn't it? They have a bye, we have a bye,
and as good as I think Sirianni is, I think Andy Reid's a better coach, and that's all it's going to come down to. I think it's going to be similar where, it comes down to one play that the Chiefs ran at the goal line twice for a touchdown because Andy Reid noticed on film something that the defensive coordinator didn't account for. And I think, if the Chiefs had I think they played the Dolphins the week before their bye. If they had the Dolphins and then they had to play the Eagles, I think the Eagles with that week head start coming with a really good game plan. They both have 2 weeks to game plan. I think Andy Reid is just the better coach. He's done it for longer. I think that he finds a way to win this game, especially with the couple of weeks the Eagles have coming up. I think that they'll obviously want to win this one, but know that they have quite the stretch coming up in the back of their heads that they're going to be thinking about that. So I think at this point they're 9-2, or 8-2.
There was a time before where we've already mentioned that this will be a game will be a sort of a calling card for Desai and what his defensive coordinating abilities are. This is no different, and this is probably the best offense that you'll face, in the NFL. And again, there's a lot of things that, you look back pretty immediately if you could do it different without Jonathan Gannon. That's something that we've been saying, like, dang, maybe if we had a defensive coordinator that didn't pretty much check out, of the Super Bowl, maybe some calls would be different, some play calling would be different, and things would go differently. Maybe, the Eagles will be on the winning side of that. Well, this is our chance to show that maybe Gannon was a,
complete loser,
kind of the weak link, if you will.
Soft.
Exactly that. Exactly.
My guy was
call the
packing.
Bills soft.
He was putting away his stuff in his office at the freaking stadium during halftime while Nick Sirianni was coaching his life away. Bastard. Sorry.
I got a hard out at 9, so you want to go through the rest and just.
Oh
yeah.
So damn, I didn't even realize it's 8:50. Wow.
I know.
Cruised.
All right, so they have Bills next. I think.
Really depends how that game goes against the Chiefs.
It does. I think that they take the L in that game just because Josh Allen, I think, is going to be a man possessed this season. Damn, you guys want to just look at the schedule and just give me your records for the end of the season?
No rush, Brian. You can take it.
I don't know. I feel rushed now. I feel pressured.
There's no rush. Take your time. We can go through the game by game still. It's just I can go first if that makes you feel better.
Go ahead.
That's fine. If you want to, yeah, go ahead and do that.
All right. So
wait, I had them losing to the Bills. I'll just put that.
Bills, I think they can win that game. Obviously Stephon Diggs is hard to contain, and I think he gets his. Josh Allen as well, but they still haven't figured out the run game, what that looks like. Maybe James Cook is something, maybe he's not. Devin Singletary's gone. So it's an interesting backfield. I'm not sure how that situation plays out, and the defense is really good. They're stingy. They play hard. But they don't really have the same kind of playmakers that if we're comparing them to different teams like the Chiefs, Nick Bolton kind of came out of nowhere. We were worried about Chris Jones. I don't know if I see that guy circled on the Bills defense. Obviously, again, still a very talented defense, but I don't know if they have the guy that's going to change a game. It's probably their safeties that are going to change the game. And I think the Eagles are just, with the weapons they have in the backfield, it's just a tough test. Then they go into they play San Francisco at home. I mean, fuck San Francisco, man. We're winning that one. No chance. Like, I just think with all the shit talking that's been happening, there's no way the Eagles don't have a chip on their shoulder about this one. They're gonna dominate them.
Oh yeah.
Dallas. Then we got Dallas Sunday night football or Saturday night. Sunday night football. Again, it's gonna be where Dallas is at during the season. I think this is a win. It's a potentially a big game, but I think it's going to be the Giants and Eagles race for the division. I think the Dallas Cowboys are kind of a long shot. So I think they're kind of defeated. And that's the thing about the Dallas Cowboys, the way that they wear their heart on their sleeve, right? So if they're not having a good season, you're not going to get the true Dallas Cowboys at this point in the season. Then Seattle, man. Seattle's a tough matchup. Be interesting game. Who knows if Geno Smith is going to do the same things he did this year? It's in Seattle, which is interesting. I'm hoping I can go to that game. That'd be a really cool game to go to. I think they still win this. I think they're the better team. Then they got the Giants at home. Tough matchup. I think this is where they kind of, they duke it out. I think maybe the Giants get one of them on them, whether that's the one at home or the last week. I think they lose one of those games and then they beat the Cardinals. So all in all, they have 3 losses for me, and it'll be a 14-3 season.
That's pretty close to what I have as well. Going and I'll kind of go through it just like Morgan. In a lot of ways. I think the Bills. That's a tough matchup because you're going through a grueling contest against the Chiefs. I'll say that in my mind, the Eagles do lose one of those 2 games. So just for the sake of the way that I'm doing my predictions, I already have them eking out a victory against the Chiefs. So let's just say they lose to the Bills, but again, they could lose to the Chiefs and beat the Bills in this scenario as well. But one of those 2 games I had them losing. Week 13, I don't care if you lose a game to the Bills or if you beat the Bills, you're not going into that San Francisco game, with this feeling of, woe is me. You're going to that game, clear mind. They want to talk. Let's bring an answer. They didn't want to see us in week 1 because hopefully, probably the team is, they want to see us if there's injuries afoot. They want to see how that goes. Well, you know what? If there's injuries afoot, I still got confidence that the Eagles are going to beat the 49ers. So if both teams are healthy, guess what? I got confidence that the Eagles are going to beat the 49ers because last year, Brock Purdy started that game. So I think everybody would agree that team was as healthy as they're going to be this year, and they still got smoked. Mm-hmm. Philadelphia Eagles are going to destroy the San Francisco 49ers. And I hope if there's any 49ers fan that wants to, see a clip of this, I'm telling you right now, the Eagles are going to beat you this season. And every single thing that we've been telling you since the NFC Championship game has been on point lockstep. It's not even close.
You're wearing the wrong colors, Eric.
Sorry. I wore this red shirt earlier underneath my work shirt. But anyway, so now that we are firmly establishing that the Eagles are going to smear the floor with the 49ers. So go to that Cowboys game. I don't believe that the Cowboys are going to be swept. I just think that's the hardest team to sweep in our division. So I'm going to throw them a bone and say maybe the Eagles do lose to them in the second game. Seahawks, I actually do have the Eagles defeating the Seahawks. And I know that they don't have the best luck against Seattle. But again, I think Geno Smith is too much of a wild card. And I think the Eagles are too much to handle. I see them to be favored. I see them, going into Seattle and taking the victory there. So now we're getting to Christmas against the Giants. I think that's an easy win on Christmas Day. I think every Eagles fan is getting a Christmas gift, as deserved. We're all great fans. And then week 17, week 18, at this point is kind of where I have a hard time saying, are they going to win against the 49ers or win against – they're on the mind, dude. Are they going to win against the Cardinals or not? And it's not because I think that the Cardinals are going to be great or anything with Jonathan Gannon. I think very much the opposite. But at this point, maybe the Eagles have a playoff position locked up. And how much of their starters are we going to actually play? And to that, the score just kind of goes to the football gods, like its backup players getting time. So they can lose those 2 games. They can win both of those games. They can split them. Who knows? But I would say maybe 3 losses, anywhere between 3 losses to 5 losses, depending on how those final 2 weeks of the season shake out.
Fair game. Just want to clarify something really quick because a Giants fan has entered the chat, right? I'm not speaking of myself because I'm not a Giants fan.
A fellow Giants fan.
No, not even a fellow, right? I'm not.
It's always Eagles, a cupcake schedule when the Giants are there against this Eagles team. Everything's tough.
The Eagles have the toughest schedule in the NFL. It's proven. So the whole fact that the Eagles have a cupcake schedule doesn't mean jack shit. The Eagles have a better roster than the 90% of the teams in the league at the end of the day. Like, that's why it looks like a cupcake schedule, because they're a pretty damn good team. Now, to go from there, I left off at the Bills. I had them beating the 49ers. I have them possibly losing to Dallas in that game, right? Yes, that would give me 3 losses. Seattle, I think we take that game. I think it's gonna be a hell of a game, to be honest. I think, with that offensive firepower versus our offense, it's gonna be phenomenal to see. Giants, I think Boston Scott has a nice Christmas present for you guys. Cardinals, this is like the game like that. You just hope that the Eagles haven't clinched anything yet, because you want them to give their all in beating the bricks off of Jonathan Gannon.
I want them to beat the bricks off the Cardinals with their backups. That's what,
dude. Imagine Mariota just going lights out against them. Like, bro, how do you look?
Marcus Mariota just imagine for 300 yards on them.
Imagine the Mariota game against Gannon.
It would be so wild, right? But I'm with Eric, right? This season's gonna end with one or 2 ways. It'll end with 3 losses or 4 losses. At this week against the Cardinals, I think it's one or two things could happen. Either they're fighting with the Giants for the division, or they clinched the division already and they're fighting for the number 1 seed. I'm going to say this again, like I said last year. If the NFC has to go through Philly to get to the Super Bowl, they're not getting to the Super Bowl. Like, you're not coming to Philadelphia and winning in the playoffs. It just does not happen in this era, in this day and age, and with Jalen Hurts alive. It's not going to happen. But I do have the Eagles being the 1 seed in the NFC, because I think they have the best quarterback in the NFC and the 3rd best quarterback in the NFL.
I'll go as far to say that, hey, San Francisco, I hope to see you guys in Philadelphia in the playoffs.
Oh, I don't think San Fran passes the first round this playoffs.
Oh, well, isn't that remarkable?
You need quarterbacks. Nobody does quarterback by committee. It's not a thing. But yeah, that's that's our schedule show. We'll be back next week. We'll break down the depth chart, who we think will be starter, who we think will be backup. It's gonna definitely be interesting. I think we might attack defense next week or so.
For sure.
But yeah, other than that, I hope you guys are enjoying schedule week. I hope you guys are enjoying the Sixers game that's on right now, and I think they're down by 7 at halftime, if I'm not mistaken.
That's what I saw.
Sorry, we didn't have a dog on the show to announce all the schedule. Like, I think that's what we need, right? A puppy to bounce off.
It has to be a puppy?
I don't know. Like, they always have like, there's a corgi, right? That's now the new Warriors mascot, right? Because they won the last 2 games. So
I'm trying to get my dog up, but he thinks I'm calling him to rub his belly.
Is it the corgi that like kicked the basketball down the steps and it went into those? Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. There's always it was like that last, or one of the NFL seasons recently. Maybe it was last NFL season with these ducks that were like going down these little rubber ducks that were going down a river, and the Eagles won every duck race, and then
I freaking love those little races.
Eagles matched it with the record in real life. It was incredible.
But yeah, until next week, guys. Be sure to catch us live on either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. It might be a surprise.
We will always let you know.
We're trying our best to get a day down pat, guys. But one way or another, we got you guys covered during the week, somehow, some way, right? Shout out to Zach, who's actually covering the Sixers game today in person.
In color.
Yes. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Until then, I'm Brian Cameron alongside Eric Reese, Morgan Burkett, and we're flipping the birds.
Go Birds!
Yes, sir.
Flipping the birds. Flipping the birds.